Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Southside Beat. My name is Chris Halicke. Happy Friday, everybody. We made it. End of the week. Excited. I hope everybody has good plans for the weekend. May the 4th tomorrow. May the 4th be with you if you're, a Star Wars fan. So, but yeah, not too much to talk about, I guess. No, I'm just joking. We have at least one major thing to talk about that we didn't really get a chance. We definitely speculated quite a bit, but obviously it did not go the way we anticipated. That was obviously Najee Harris's fifth-year option. We expected the Steelers to pick it up. We kind of already knew that Justin Fields' fifth-year option wasn't we knew that wasn't going to be picked up. Over $25 million, hasn't even played a single snap for the Steelers. It made almost no sense. Really, really anticipated Najee's, and we weren't the only ones. There were a lot of people, including people in the media that cover the team, that expected the Steelers to give him that, or at least pick up that option. $6.79 million for a running back who has produced 3 1,000-yard seasons in his first 3 seasons. He's the only running back over the past 3 seasons that has produced 1,000 yards in a season. Talked about it yesterday. Productive, not necessarily the most efficient, but productive, and does not get the fifth-year option. And see, Jordan kind of brings it up here, and just so that we can just put it out there. I mean, we kind of know this now by now. The Steelers don't pick up the option, and so now Najee Harris enters a contract year. So it's a very, very different situation for him than if he had 2 years left instead of 1 year. Jordan here says Najee has yet to live up to the hype. First round pick, probably fair, but also not a bust. And I'm not saying you called him that, but definitely not a bust. You don't have 3 1,000-yard seasons and earn the name or earn the term being a bust. Like, that's just also not fair. Like, I don't. Well, I do know this, and I reported this yesterday, and I know I wasn't the only person to report it, but I was the only person to report that they are working on, or at least I'm gonna say they're working on. There is real potential for a long-term deal there, and they will try to get that done this summer. How that ends up playing out, we obviously are. I mean, it's May. It's May 3rd. Like, we're a ways away. We still have rookie mini camp to get to, then 3 weeks of OTAs to get to, then mini camp to get to, then the week, or the month between the end of mini camp and the beginning of training camp before we really even see, is Najee going to hold in? And is that going to be part of, if Najee shows up and he's not practicing, then maybe they are in contract negotiations. I don't know. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what to anticipate there. I know that they want to try to get that done this summer possibly, but Najee might be like, no, it's a contract year. I'm gonna go in and make sure that I get my top dollar. And I understand the Steelers' perspective. Having some time now, nearly 24 hours, to kind of chew on this and really try to think about this from the Steelers' perspective, because again, in my opinion, it was a slam dunk decision. Like, even if he has a monster year this year and becomes 1,300 yard, 1,400 yard rusher, 4.5+ yards per carry, one of the most productive and efficient running backs in the league, then that $6.79 million is going to be a freaking steal. But that's not guaranteed, and the Steelers might be of the mindset that let's wait and see what happens. It's a brand new offense. Let's see how Najee fits in this offense. Let's see how Najee fits with what Arthur Smith wants to do. Now, I saw some people talking like on social media about this yesterday, and it's funny how like a lot of fans seem to like immediately turn on Najee, but then we start going along the lines of just making up crap. And like I even saw somebody say something like, well, Arthur Smith runs, wide zone, outside zone stuff, and that doesn't fit Najee. That's horribly untrue, horribly inaccurate. Najee Harris, if you look up the numbers and you know anything about the player, he is primarily and has primarily been an outside zone runner going all the way back to his days at Alabama. He typically puts up better numbers as an outside zone runner. Now, the lone exception to that, which is what really makes me curious of what exactly the Steelers are going to be doing on offense, and this decision to decline Najee's option is yet another wrinkle in that, is last year after they fired Matt Canada and Faulkner and Sullivan really spent time integrating more gap and man concepts. I don't want to say gap and man. It's either one, whichever term you want to use. I prefer to use gap. They implemented more gap concepts to the offense and already knew that Jaylen Warren was going to benefit from that because Jaylen Warren is a better gap runner. He is. He is the type of running back, see hole, hit the hole. There you go. That's always made better for it. You have to have a lot of patience as a running back, especially for running wide zone, outside zone, because you have to read off tackle. You have to read a number of different things where the holes are opening up. Do you have your primary attack point? Are you going to hit that primary attack point? Does it make sense to try to hit the cutback lane up the middle? Is the defense completely overcompensating? Now I can cut back all the way against the grain of the play, like all the way back to the, like outside the weak side tackle. Like what do I do here? Like there's a lot of things to read and it's not as easy to do. And so, but last year when they switched to more gap concepts, I was like, I don't know how that's going to work for Najee because he's typically been a better outside zone runner. And my God, some of the numbers that he put up in some of those gap concepts were freaking stupid good. Like his numbers, I think he had like a 75% success rate in when the Steelers were running power. I think from the time that they fired Matt Canada, like that week after, which was the Bengals game, through the end of the season, I think he had like a 70. Like I don't remember the exact range. It's in one of my chalk talks, but I think I believe it was a 75% success rate during that time while running power, and then he had like not quite as good, but another really, really good success rate, like very good success rate running duo, which both of those are gap concepts. And so it's just, I don't know. I don't understand it. Because to me, if Arthur Smith is going to be, if he's going to implement the same type of system that he had in Tennessee and Atlanta, I would expect wide zone, outside zone to be the primary way to go. And Najee, to me, fits that greatly. It seems like he would be very successful at that. Now, just because that's what Arthur Smith has done in the past doesn't necessarily mean that that's what he's going to do here. And you might think, of course it is. That's the type of offense that he runs. Well, for a long time, Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, two of the most respected offensive minds in the game, ran similar offenses. And then here recently, you've seen both of those guys start reverting to more and switching to more gap concepts. Why? Because defenses are now better equipped to defend outside zone. They are faster. They're smaller. They can better run sideline to sideline and defend horizontally. And now they're not quite as equipped to defend vertical rushing attacks. And lo and behold, you look at the Rams last year, when you break it down from every concept that they ran duo more often than any other concept. And oh, by the way, Kyron Williams, I think was like third in the NFL in rushing last year. Rams were wildly successful running the football and did it while switching to more gap concepts. So that has me thinking, okay, best offensive minds in the game are doing it. Maybe some of the other really good offensive minds like Arthur Smith are thinking about doing it too. And so I understand wanting to keep options open and maintain flexibility. And I think ultimately that's what this comes down to, especially if they are confident. Like, I don't know how that conversation went with Najee or his agent or anything, in which they go, we're declining your 5th-year option, but we obviously want to keep you here for a long time. Like, I don't know if the conversation went that way, or if it's like, we really want to see what you do in this offense before we really commit to you, beyond this year. They can't always franchise tag him too. That's the thing. But that franchise tag will cost way more than what that it will cost way more than what that 5th-year option was going to. So let's try to get some questions here. Mark asks, it could be his attitude where they want to gauge his fit. I don't think his attitude has anything to do with it. I mean, he's been considered to be a leader in that locker room pretty much ever since he came in as a rookie. I think any decision or any Joshua asks how much. I don't think those numbers are posted yet. They won't be posted until after the upcoming season. When talking about the franchise tag, but when talking about his fit, again, I think this is more about what the Steelers want to do systematically, what the scheme is going to be. Are they going to be more of a gap team? If that's the case, that fits Jaylen Warren a lot more. Like, even with the success that Najee had last year running gap after they fired Matt Canada, Jaylen Warren's numbers compared between zone and gap are night and day. I mean, I think last year when they ran gap concepts, I think this is even over the course of the entire season, he averaged like 6.5 yards a carry running gap. The dude he's a phenomenal runner in gap. And so that makes me think, like, if the Steelers are, even though they brought in a coordinator who's typically run more wide zone, Mike Tomlin might have been like, okay, I know this is what you've done in the past, and we might want to sprinkle some of it in. But look at what we did while running more gap last year. We don't want to change that. And so that might fit. I don't know. That's why I really want to see what plays out once they get on the field, once they actually start the process of building the offense, and we'll really begin to get a taste of that during training camp. But even talking to the players during OTAs, during minicamp, that might give us the first little glimpse into what the Steelers are wanting to do offensively. Rico comes in with a $10 contribution. Appreciate that, Rico. Contributes probably more than anybody, so I appreciate that, man. Rico says, I love Najee, but more important, Coach T does. He's had to run in Matt Canada's offense with a mediocre at best line and throw in a serious foot injury, but he still got 3 1,000s. They'll re-sign him. I do believe, and like I said, I mean, I had a team source flat out tell me that there is real potential for an extension. So I firmly believe that the Steelers are not just, they didn't decline the 5th-year option being like, yeah, we're not thinking about you as a Steeler beyond 2024. No, I think the Steelers want to do that. I think they might want to maintain flexibility. They might want to see how not, like I said, you go through the beginning stages of OTAs and minicamp and stuff like that. You begin to see how Najee is going to fit into this offense. You can even get the inkling early on. Like, yes, you haven't even put on pads yet, like full pads yet, and had like the full contact practices, much less preseason games or regular season games, but still maintaining flexibility, at least for right now. That's why I said I'm really curious to see how this will play out this summer. Like, if they're going to try to get an extension done, like, how hard are they going to try? Like, I'm that curious. Like, if Najee completely participates throughout training camp and we don't ever get an inkling of them being close on an extension, then maybe they tried like once or twice and Najee's just like, no, thank you. Like, I don't know. We have to see how that plays out. Let's try to get some more Let's try to get some more questions. You guys have any questions? If you asked a question earlier and I didn't see it, put it in there again because I might be. I definitely probably overlooked it. Let's see. Now, Spice Creation says like they don't want to pay him $6 million. They sure won't want to pay him the franchise tag money. Again, that's why I think this is more about maintaining flexibility. If it's just not a fit, if they don't re-sign him to an extension, and it just ends up not being a fit for whatever reason, even though I think it'd be a fit, then they have the flexibility to move on. To let that cap space just open up and they move on. They can work out something with Jaylen Warren. He's a restricted free agent, so they maintain rights to him. So I don't think it's just like they're unwilling to pay him that kind of money. I having almost 24 hours to kind of chew on it now, I do think that this is more of maintaining flexibility moving forward. They don't want to lock themselves into something that might not end up working out. That's Biet asks, do they try to keep both running backs or just one? I think, it's interesting because, if salary cap were no object, then I think the answer is very obvious. They'd love to keep both Najee and Jalen. I think somebody else said it here. William said it here. Najee's the Thunder and Jalen's the Lightning. They're a phenomenal 1-2 punch. One of the best in the NFL, and that's not hyperbole. That's not over exaggerating. There were two teams that had multiple running backs get 1,000 yards from scrimmage last year. The Lions and the Steelers. Those were the only two teams that did it. So saying that Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren are one of the best running back duos in the league that's not over exaggerating. If you go to have football conversations with your friends who might be fans of other teams and they're like, yeah, dude, and you say something like that, they might be like, please, man, you don't know what you're talking about. Be like, dude, no, go look it up. Look at the numbers, man. Like, those guys produce, and they produced in a terrible offense that had to fire its coordinator in the middle of the season. I think ideally they'd love to find a way to keep both running backs, but I don't know how likely that's going to be whenever they've also got to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback beyond 2024. Like, what if Russell Wilson turns into like a much closer version of Russell Wilson that we saw in Seattle? And he has some sort of late career resurgence and becomes a quarterback worth paying between 30 and 40 million a year. Then you have to find a way to pay him, possibly. Or you have to find a way to possibly extend Justin Fields, which that won't be cheap because, again, he's a quarterback. So, again, I think that's why the Steelers want to maintain flexibility moving forward. Mr. CJ Jr. asks, mandatory minicamp starts in June, right? They have to get something done. Yes, minicamp starts in June. It's typically about mid-June. So OTAs begin in a little less than 3 weeks. I think the 21st. I'm looking over at my calendar on the wall, by the way. My kids have a calendar on the wall that they like to, so they can see what day it is and they get to practice, all that stuff. So, like May 21st, I think is the first day. So if you got your calendar open, it's 3 weeks of OTAs. So it's usually like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday every week. So like the week of May 21st, that's first week. Then the next week's OTAs. Then the week after that's OTAs. And then the week after that is the mandatory minicamp. They don't have to get anything done by then. That's around the time that they signed Minkah to an extension, was around the OTA/minicamp. I believe it was around that time that they did it, maybe a little after. I honestly can't remember. I want to say it was June that they signed Minkah to the extension. But they don't have to get it done by then, man. Like when they signed Deontay to his extension, they were well in the training camp, and Deontay was holding in. So that's why I'm curious to see, okay, if they don't get it done, throughout OTAs and minicamp, does that drag into training camp? And if it does, and there are ongoing negotiations for an extension, does Najee use holding in as a negotiation tactic? I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. We talked about this yesterday, Travis. No. Travis asks, is what I hear true, Fields being possibly used on kickoffs? To reiterate, because I'm not going to go into this again, and this is why this is one of the times that I really, really not just like hate, but really loathe social media. Jalen Warren goes on Cam Hayward's podcast. Kickoffs are brought up. He's asked what he want to do to kickoffs. Fans are like, no, don't do it. We want you healthy on offense. And then he says that Danny Smith was like, we should use Justin Fields on kickoffs. And Danny Smith, the special teams coordinator. And so then that just takes off on social media, and stories are written about it on ESPN, which is making people think that might actually happen. No, again, I put it on yesterday's show, May 2nd, 2024. I put down the gauntlet. If Justin Fields returns one kick, I will shave this entire beard, like down to the skin, razor. I have not put a razor to my face. I've used clippers and trimmers and all this other kind of stuff. I have not put a razor to my face in almost 13 years. The day that I got married was the last time I put a razor in my face. I will shave my face completely, razor and all. That is how confident I am that is not happening. It was a joke that spread like wildfire. I honestly cannot wait until Mike Tomlin addresses the media on the second day of rookie minicamp, which would be a week from tomorrow, and somebody in that media scrum asks him about Justin Fields returning kicks. I can't wait to see his answer. I cannot wait to see his answer. It's going to be so great. And what's going to be even great, like better about it, is that I'm going to be able to laugh at it from a distance. Because whenever he says whatever he says in the moment, I'm going to want to laugh my butt off. But, if I were like in the scrum, I'd have to be sitting there with my recorder in hand or camera open and just kind of being like, keeping a straight face. But I'm going to be 1,200 miles away and just laughing my butt off. It's going to be so awesome. No, it's not happening. Not at all. Teresa asks, Chris, this is a big year for Pat Freiermuth as well. Do you think he'll come into camp prepared to block and do it well? Yes, I think he's going to be better equipped and better prepared to block, but I don't think anybody should ever expect Pat Freiermuth to become a really good blocking tight end. He is what he is. He is primarily a better receiving tight end than he is a blocking tight end. I think that's why having Darnell Washington, and that why like they even had Zach Gentry. They've always had that number 2 tight end be a guy who can really block since they got Freiermuth. What I want to see is I want to see an offensive coordinator try to use him in the right way, because the talent is there for him to be a very, very productive tight end. Like talking like a good guy to have on your fantasy team type tight end. Like not quite at a Travis Kelce or George Kittle or Darren Waller from a couple of years ago, type of tight end, but second tier tight end 1. He has that capability 100%. I want to see a coordinator try to use him in the right way, because that is honestly what concerns me more about Pat Freiermuth more than his blocking. How are they going to possibly use him better in the receiving game? Because he is very, very talented, and talented enough to do so. But he's had to have. That's one thing that when we talk about Najee, when we talk about Freiermuth, shoot, I'll even bring it up when we talk about Kenny Pickett, when we talk about any of these guys who have played in the offense for the last 3 seasons. Like, there's always going to be, how much were they handcuffed by Matt Canada's offense? It's not completely on Canada. There have been, players are accountable for it too. Like for example, today, to kind of use a different sport metaphor, like today, the Penguins fired Todd Reirden, or at least agreed to part ways with Todd Reirden. And he got all the blame for a terrible power play and the defense just being so bad, Ryan Graves especially being so bad, And so he gets fired, and some people are thinking like this is going to magically get fixed. Like, no, the players have to own that too. It's not completely Todd Reirden's fault that the power play ranked 31st of 32 NHL teams. Like, it's not completely his fault. The players have to wear some of that too. It's the same thing in the Matt Canada offense. It's not completely on Matt Canada. There were plays to be made sometimes. There were. Kenny Pickett didn't make throws. Sometimes Deontay Johnson didn't make catches. Sometimes George Pickens didn't run a good route. It just, sometimes Pat Freiermuth didn't sit in the right spot in zone coverage or whatever it was. Like, there were some execution lapses too that are on the players. So, yeah. Let's see. Brent being very giving on a Friday. Brent gives out 5 memberships. Grab one if you can. Let's see. Good to know that some people are. Oh, here's a good question from Brent. How satisfied are you with the roster right now? I'll try to not do this too lengthy. Position by position, I'll put it that way. I feel better about the quarterback room than I did before. I like the top 2 duo of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields over Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky, or Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph, or whatever order you want to put that in. I feel better about the quarterback room. Running back room is the same. And they actually even added Cordero Patterson to it. Not that I think that he's going to have some sort of major role in offense. I think he's mainly brought in to return kicks. The receiver room I don't feel as good about. I like drafting Roman Wilson, but missing Deontay Johnson's big. So I don't feel great about receiver. To me, that's the biggest hole in the team right now. I feel good about the tight end room. They added Michael Pruitt to the room. So they've got 4 guys who can play. Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, Connor Hayward, and Pruitt. I feel good about the tight end room. I feel a lot better about the offensive line with them getting Fautanu and Frazier in the draft, and even Mason McCormick later on. I feel good about the offensive line. I don't think it's going to be quite like a top 10 unit yet, but it will be at least above average. I think so. I think this has the potential to, and I think the potential in years to come, like maybe in like 2 seasons, this could be like a top 10, maybe even top 5 offensive line. Like, that potential is there. Defensive line, it's kind of a wash. I'd like to see more depth, like more quality depth, but I'm, a little concerned about Cam Hayward's age. I'm concerned about Larry Ogunjobi's, durability. I think Keanu Benton could have a really good second year. So it's kind of a wash for me. Edge rusher is always good. You got TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Nick Herbig as a third. Even if they don't have Marcus Golden or anybody like that, I like Herbig as a third. So I feel good about edge rusher. I feel better about cornerback than I did whenever it was Levi Wallace on the outside. I think Dante Jackson's an upgrade there. Not a gigantic upgrade, but a little bit better. They need to get a slot corner. That's the second biggest need on the team. But I feel a little bit better about cornerback. That might be a little bit of a wash too, but a little bit better. I think, like I said, I think Jackson's an upgrade over Wallace. And safety, I actually feel pretty good. I like Deshaun Elliott back there with Minkah Fitzpatrick, and then even DeMonte Casey is a third guy. I think safety is actually a pretty good position for them right now. So punter, they took care of punter. They have a really good kicker. So overall, I think the roster is better. They just need to shore up receiver and slot corner, and I'll feel a lot better about it. A team that can compete in this division. I'm not going to try to make any outlandish claims of, oh, they're definitely going to make the playoffs or they're going to win 12 games or anything. A team that can compete in this division. And that's honestly the highest praise I can give, because the AFC North, despite what Micah Parsons says, is the best division in football. So there's my very lengthy answer. Joshua Dobbs, Kendrick Green for returner. That's awesome. I can't wait to see the games that Mike Tomlin plays with the media this year. Oh man, that one tickled me. Thank you so much. Brent asks, are we short on any coaches right now? No, the staff is pretty much filled. Any additions that are made would just be I won't say non-essential, that icing on the cake, pretty much. They've got everything short up there when it comes to the coaching staff. And I like some of the moves that they made. I would have liked to see the Steelers maybe vet the offensive coordinator search a little bit more, but Arthur Smith is a major upgrade over Matt Canada, an offensive coordinator. Well, first off, a guy who's actually been offensive coordinator in the NFL previously, and a guy who's actually had success as an offensive coordinator in the league without a star quarterback. I'll take that. So might not be fit to be a head coach. Didn't go well in Atlanta, but his 2 years as OC in Tennessee were phenomenal. So like the Tom Arth hire. Interesting to see how Mike Sullivan does as like a senior offensive assistant. Kind of curious to see how that plays out. Kind of like some of the hires that they've made. Damon asks an interesting question. What are your thoughts on the possibility of players wearing Guardian caps in games? It'll be interesting to see how many players embrace that. Some players don't really like it. I think actually a majority of players don't like it. I think that they, like they're okay with it during practice. I don't know how often they're going to be used on game days. That's something that's also pretty curious and something that might be worth like if you subscribe to DKPittsburghSports.com, which by the way, if you don't, you should. But if you subscribe to DKPittsburghSports.com and read all of our coverage, not just our Steelers coverage, Taylor Haas, who covers the Penguins for us, she does a survey says thing for the Penguins, and it when she covers the Penguins, and it's always interesting and fun to see what the players say on a specific theme. That might be something fun to do, like during OTAs or minicamp. Like it's just to poll players and be like, "How do you feel about Guardian caps during games? Like, will you do it? How will you feel about it if you see other players doing it?" That's something that's I'm pretty interested to find out. It'll be a little bit further on the back burner. Like it's not going to be top of the line question. Hey, Pat, how are you liking this new offense? Oh, and then by the way, are you going to wear your Guardian cap during a game? Like not something that's going to be near to the top of the line of questioning, but still something that will be interesting to find out. Let's see. I also just rewatched the movie Concussion not that long ago. So I'm like really concussions and like looking out for player safety is like almost at the forefront of my mind just because of it. Let's see. I'll go through and try to get some more questions here. We're already like 33 minutes into the show. Probably getting near the end here. The Ted Bear asks, Tomlin contracts. Like, I would expect that to happen during the summer. That's what I would expect. At some point. I don't know if it'll be early on. It might be something that happens right before training camp, or like maybe that first week of training camp, they announce a contract extension for Tomlin. It might be something like that. That would be my guess of when something like that gets done. Or like right at the conclusion of training camp, like the first week that they go back over to the South Side to start doing practices, when they're in that practice stage between the end of training camp and then the beginning of the season. That might be another time. The reason why I think right at the start of training camp is because get it done and then let Mike Tomlin work. Like he doesn't want to have to be thinking about contract issues while he's working. Get that kind of done out of the way. That's my guess. My guess would be that. Teresa asks, Chris, I read a coach got fired. Do you know who it was? I don't know about any Steelers coach that got fired. At least not anytime recently. I know Todd Reardon is the most recent coach in Pittsburgh to get fired. Make sure I'm not missing any questions here. Jerry asks, what is your game prediction this season? Like, how many games are they going to win? I'm not there yet. I am not anywhere near prepared to make a record prediction. While we know who the opponents are, don't know when they're playing them, and the order of the schedule absolutely matters when it comes to yeah, okay, Jerry asked you. Yeah, I'm not prepared to put a win-loss. It's May 3rd, man. Mark asks, is Faulkner still the running backs coach? Yes, he is. Yeah, I mean, I would. Okay, here we go. Steelberg asks, how do you feel about the middle of the defense, specifically on passing downs? 2 new rookies, Wilson and Watts, might be able to help out. I feel a lot better about it. Like I said, safety, Minka, Deshaun Elliott, feel good about that. Patrick Queen, good in coverage. Peyton Wilson, I mean, this could be the steal of the draft, to be completely honest. I feel a lot better about it than I did even last year. Even though Landon Roberts really did surprise me, he was a lot better in pass coverage than I expected him to be. Still, even just adding Patrick Queen to the mix, I felt better about it. Now I feel even better about it that they have Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson at linebacker, and by the way, I fully expect Landon Roberts to be the starter next to Patrick Queen right away. I don't expect Peyton Wilson to just be given, here you go, you're LB2. Like I don't anticipate that happening. It might be something he really has, like kind of like the way Lawrence Timmons was that first linebacker off or on the field whenever either James Ferrier or Larry Foote needed a breather. Like, think of that 08 defense in which they had, I mean, only 2 inside linebackers on the field at a time. And those 2 primary guys were James Ferrier and Larry Foote, but then Lawrence Timmons still got plenty of reps in there. That's what I would think Peyton Wilson would be. He would be the 2024 version of Lawrence Timmons, but only with like Ryan Shazier's skill set. Let's see. And Cody says 53-man roster even out yet. I will say this. The first, I typically give an initial record prediction when the schedule comes out. And then I'll probably do another one around the time training camp begins, because by that time the roster is pretty much built outside of any late additions, like to bring guys in to compete. For example, Quan Alexander last year. But outside of that, they're not bringing in any guys at that point to become starters, not unless they just flat out earn it in training camp. But and then my, like, I guess official record prediction would actually be right before the season starts. Once the 53-man set, once we know of any injuries that happened during training camp or preseason, anything like that, like we know who the quarterback's going to be, the running back, like we know the entire roster, how it looks throughout the rest of the league. If Joe Burrow is down with another season-long injury, that will make me feel a lot better about picking the Steelers to possibly sweep the Bengals instead of either splitting those 2 games or even getting swept, for example. You know, there's a lot that has to play out. But typically, like when that schedule first comes out, I'll kind of give like what I feel based off of what the schedule looks like. If like 1 November, even though if the opponents don't look too terrible, but it's the time of year, it's been forever since they've had a bye, or they haven't had a bye yet, and they possibly are dealing with a lot of injuries, and they've got 3 out of 4 on the road, like right there. Like that's whenever you have to kind of figure like it. I would think on paper they might win this game, but given the circumstances of how the schedule is playing out, I don't feel so good about it. So that's why I wait until the schedule comes out. Let's see. A couple more questions and we'll wrap this one up. I don't like having dead air. I don't like having dead air. My only radio experience is 2 semesters of college radio. And anytime we had even like 2 seconds of dead air, those were the longest 2 seconds in like ever felt by anybody. It was just like, oh my God, somebody say something. So, well, I don't see any others. If you have any other questions, like throw them in there, like right now, or I mean, we're probably getting near the end of the show anyway. So, and the weather is starting to look not so great outside. I've got like I don't have a ring light, so I typically have like all of the blinds in my window in like my living room, dining room area open, and I just use all of this like natural light, and it's like being taken away from me because I don't know if there's storms coming or not. Jeff asks, what can we expect between now and OTAs? Probably more roster additions, maybe not too many. I would like to see them get a receiver, but options are running low. DJ Chark went to the Chargers. Odell Beckham Jr. went to the Dolphins. Not that I think Odell Beckham Jr. was a good addition, but he's better than anything that they have right now in terms of that second outside receiver. So, yeah, I don't know. I would think they get another receiver added between now and OTAs, but maybe they're waiting for that post June 1 situation to possibly make a trade with somebody because there are cap consequences there, like good consequences for teams if they were to wait until after June 1 to part with a player. I don't have the mental capacity right now to try to break down exactly how that works, but that's just the best way to put it. So if you're looking for like possibly like trading for a certain player that's got like a big contract, who has like multiple years left on a big contract, that might be why. I think the primary name that we're named there that's been brought up has been DK Metcalf. Not that I think that they'll actually trade for him, but if something like that is a possibility, that might be why we don't see that happen until after June 1, because the Seahawks can save themselves some cap space by waiting until after June 1st to trade him. So, Rico asks when Yins is going to get to the Berg. We got to get our house on the market first. And in order to get that done, we have to get our roof done. Like I said, storms in Texas, we've been getting a lot of them. And the roofing company that we are scheduled to use right now, they're like, I think by this point, still like 5 to 7 roofs like behind, yeah, they're like 5 to 7 roofs behind them when it comes like we're kind of still a little bit further back in line. You can't replace a roof if it's raining, right? You're running the risk of sheetrock and everything like that getting damaged inside the house. So unfortunately, Texas wanted to turn into northwestern United States and get all this rainfall, and it's slowing down the possibility of getting the roof replaced. Once we get the roof replaced, house is on the market, and as soon as it's sold, as soon as we're under contract, I'm going up there. We're going to get a house under contract up there, and we're on our way. Before training camp, I'll put it that way. So, all right. Last comment, last question. Jonah John comes in with a $4.99 contribution. Appreciate that very much. Says with Najee, they may be trying to get dirt cheap runners next year, considering how cheap the quarterback room is now. That bill will come due very soon. Again, I just think it comes down to flexibility. I think it really comes down to none of the quarterbacks that they have on the roster are under contract beyond this season. They're going to have to figure out what they're going to do there. Like I said, if Russell Wilson has some sort of late career resurgence, it happens. To use a baseball analogy, when Adrian Beltre signed his free agent contract with the Texas Rangers, he was not a Hall of Famer. Good player, but not a Hall of Famer. And he used those last 8 years of his career after he had already played double digits. I think he was already like more than 10 years in major league service time. If he wasn't, he was really close. By the time he got to the Rangers, he turned himself into a Hall of Famer because of how well he played during the final 8 years of his career. He aged like a fine wine. Who knows if something like that happens with Russell Wilson? they may have to end up paying him, and you need flexibility in order to do that. So that might be why. Not saying, or maybe it's Justin Fields is the guy that gets that contract. But you got to get quarterback worked out before you can work out running back. It's obviously it's the most important position on the roster. So I think the decision to decline Najee's fifth-year option, again, is more about flexibility moving forward. That's what I think. So, but again, Team Source tells me yesterday there is real potential for a contract extension, a long-term extension, and they will try to do that this summer. That's what I've been hearing. So, all right, going to wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for the questions today. Whenever we fly solo here, it's always easier when you guys are contributing and part of the conversation. Yeah, it's always a lot more fun that way. So I appreciate you guys. Corey had to cover Riverhounds training today. So I really appreciate. So it's not like Corey's not doing anything. He's working. I mean, it's like sometimes it's Steelers, sometimes it's Pirates, sometimes it's Riverhounds now. Corey is he's doing good. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend. May the 4th be with you. I always feel like I'm talking with a lisp every time I do that. And then speaking as somebody who had a lisp whenever I was a kid. So it's just like, even though it feels weird. The Ted Bear asks, DK and Ramon. No. So as of right now, like during the off season, the Ramon show is only on Wednesdays. So, yeah. So look for DK and Ramon next Wednesday. Yeah, I appreciate it. Mark, thank you so much. I appreciate the shout out. Appreciate the, yes. And William says shout out to Oklahoma tornado survivors. Absolutely, man. It's, as somebody who lives in like the very, very, like the southern tip of like Tornado Alley, I understand like you have to be on pins and needles like all the time. Anytime there are storms brewing, like, man, tornado warnings, tornado watches are not like something that just, oh, well, it's just one of those things where you're like, all right, well, it comes with the territory, like literally. So, but unfortunately, whenever they really do rip through, man, it can cause a lot of devastation. So, definitely shout out to those people, and definitely hope that everybody, obviously as many people can, recover. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend. I am going to be completely MIA tomorrow. My wife is retiring. Her retirement ceremony. My retirement ceremony. Not mine. My wife's retirement ceremony for 20 years in the Navy is tomorrow. So happy to celebrate her. She's a true hero. So thank you guys so much. Catch you guys on the Flippity Flip. See you guys Monday.